Hi, this is Lorenzo.
And this is Natalia. Welcome to the podcast Canadian Citizenship by North York Community House.
This is the space where our volunteers will read articles about some of the topics you may encounter on the test.
Welcome, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
In this episode, we are going to talk about evolution of voting rights in Canada.
And more specifically, how we finally achieved our fully participation in making decisions about the future of our country.
Okay, let's listen to our volunteer for today's episode.
Hello everyone, I am Tony Alderson and I am a volunteer at North York Community House. Today we are going to read something about the evolution of the voting rights in Canada. Evolution of voting rights in Canada. Question: how did voting rights change over the years in Canada? Canada is a democratic country where the leaders of the federal, provincial and local governments are chosen by election. Participation in federal and provincial elections is a privilege, but also a right and responsibility. The Constitution of Canada says any citizen of Canada over the age of 18 is eligible to vote in a federal, provincial or local election. This gives the opportunity to debate and decide the future of the country. Today, Canadian federal elections are formally announced by the Governor-General on the Prime Minister's request. After this, the Parliament has to be dissolved and new elections will be called. Today, candidates run for 338 seats in the House of Commons. At the time of Confederation in 1867, the percentage of people who could vote was only 11%. This was difficult, as only a small group showed their consent as to who should be ruling the country. Only men over 21 who owned properties and assets of a specific value and paid a certain amount as tax were allowed to vote. Who did not have the right to participate in elections? Women. Also people with certain jobs, such as judges and government workers, and also people from certain racial backgrounds, such as South Asian Canadians. First Nations peoples could only vote if they gave up their Indian status. Big changes in voting rights started after World War I. In 1918, Canadian women were granted the right to vote in federal elections. Elections Canada was officially created on July 1, 1920, after a series of controversial decisions about how federal representatives were elected during the First World War. A special committee made up of both Conservatives and Liberals was put together to come up with a solution to run federal elections moving forward. As a result, about 50% of the population, Canadian men and women, if they were 21 or older, were eligible to vote in the 1921 election. This changed in 1970 when the voting age was lowered to 18. The first ever national referendum was held in Canada in 1942. The question was whether military service should be compulsory during the Second World War. Based on the result, the government adopted conscription, but with an adjustment that those conscripted would not be sent overseas to active fighting. These referendum results influenced the later voting rights. In 1948, racial and religious barriers were removed. Mennonites and Doukhobors were both religions prevented from voting in early federal elections because most members of both these groups refused to perform military service for religious reasons. Inuit gained the right to vote federally in 1950, and in 1960, First Nations men and women obtained the right to vote unconditionally. British citizens can no longer vote in Canadian elections since 1975. And today, the voting rules are very different today. One must only be a Canadian citizen of age 18 or more to be eligible to vote. It is about 75% of Canada's population. The remaining 25% do not meet the age or citizenship requirements. I hope you enjoyed this reading. Good luck on your test, and I hope this was interesting.
Okay, so Lorenzo, how did you find this topic?
It was actually really interesting, and I didn't know a lot of things, to be honest.
Okay, so once again, it's good to have this topic. Let's now discuss some hard words.
Yep.
The first verb is dissolve. It means to officially end business, agreement, or parliament, or even sometimes a marriage. But we have a good example, I think. The election was announced and parliament was dissolved. So do you know that actually I heard about another meaning of this verb?
No, tell me more.
So, for example, if you would like to make a solid become part of a liquid, that you have to dissolve the tablet in water in order to have this medicine.
Okay, interesting word.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, okay. Next word is consent. So consent is a noun, and it's basically a permission to do something, especially given by somebody in authority. So if someone gives their consent, you have the permission to do something. So for example, if you're a parent, I'm sure that you must have read this sentence, that the written consent of a parent is required. So consent.
Okay.
Or you can also have a mutual consent.
It's a very responsible step, yes, to give your consent.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. So the next word, it's controversial. We have controversial decisions. So actually controversial is an adjective. It means causing a lot of angry public discussion and disagreement, very serious reaction on any announcement or article. So, for example, this topic is highly controversial, and we can expect a lot of angry discussions later on.
Yeah, and there are also many topics that are controversial in our life. Yeah.
And you have, yes, to read carefully and understand, interpret meanings.
Yeah, that's why we're not going to talk about any controversial topics in this podcast.
Definitely.
Okay, and our next word, Natalia, is a conscription. Do you know what conscription is?
It's also a new word to me, but I know what stands behind. So can you help us to find out the meaning?
Yes, so it was also a new word to me, and it's the practice of ordering people by law to join the armed forces. So, for example, we can say all adult males will be liable for conscription.
Yes, but nowadays in Canada, no any conscription to the services. Actually, it's not compulsory military services in Canada. Did you know about this?
Yeah, I knew. Yeah, recently. Yeah.
Okay. So another word, it's unconditionally. I love this word. It's actually an adverb. Yeah. It means to do something without any conditions or limits. And parents love their children unconditionally.
Yeah, that's nice. And also we have, of course, you said it's an adverb, but also we have the adjective conditional. For example, if you're a student, sometimes you have a conditional acceptance for university. So conditional, according to conditions, unconditional, no limits, no condition. As Natalia
Thank
said.
you very much for this. Yeah, okay. And we have also some new groups of people. Let's talk a little bit about them.
Yeah, okay. So the first group is the Mennonites, and it's a radical movement within the Protestant Reformation of the 16th century that clearly defined them, as I said, as a religious group. So at the end of the First World War, they began to immigrate to Canada from the US.
Okay, and we have some settlements even here in Ontario, and you can visit their markets.
Okay, where? Do you know where?
It's more north from Toronto, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So, and another group, Doukhobors. So actually the Doukhobors, it's a Russian religious dissenter group, people who were not agree with official policy that came from the government and especially from the Orthodox Church. And in the late 19th century, the Doukhobors fled Russia to settle and farm in the Canadian prairies.
Perfect. Okay, so that was an interesting analysis of the, how the voting rights evolved. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you very much, Lorenzo, for helping me to clarify some difficult words.
Thank you, and I will see you next time.
See you next time.
Bye-bye. This is the end of our episode.
Make sure to check out our Facebook page, Citizenship Test Preparation North York Community House, where you can find more information about our free preparation courses.
You can also visit our website, nych.ca, nych.ca, where you will find all the information and updates about our programs.
You can also find us on Instagram at Newfoundland, LinkedIn, and Twitter.